If you're someone that pays close attention to the world building in WutheringWaves, you'd know that even smaller areas of Jinsho have very diverse NPCs. From key ones to just people going about their lives, everything from 1.0 to 1.4 environmentally is pretty lively, even if a little empty in some areas. So when we got 2.0 and with it Rinascita, I was excited to see what exactly changed, if anything at all. Today we'll be looking at what kind of population the Ragonesi are and what kind of differences there are to Jinsho. Starting off, Raguna is made up of 3 to maybe 4 factions, consisting of the Order, the Falia family, the Melli, and the Fool's Troop. Starting off with the Order, they're dispersed all over Raguna City as well as in some parts outside of it. They are often found, well, I'm talking about them like they're animals, preaching to their sentinel or their book to people, which we find out in another quest, just features whatever their head guy wearing the laurel thinks of the sentinel pretty much. I think we can all agree the Order is a bit suspicious, but the way we can best observe this, aside from the story, is actually all over Rinascita. Often, you can find them blessing people, and Ragoneshi seem to be eating their words right up. The main place where you'd find them is the Order of the Deep, an entire structure sort of above the other Ragonesi, if you catch my drift. Acolytes aren't really allowed to like echoes or feel favor for them, so the only echoes you'd really find here are the ones they control themselves. This is another point I love about Rinascita. The lack of density in NPCs is easily made up with silly or serious echoes. Even if they just replay an animation they have, it fills up the world so much more. Regardless, any echoes here are serious and used for either protection or status. The Cathedral of Mercury has more of these acolytes and followers praying, preaching, and baptizing? While a lot of the people of the Order do these things, I feel it's never really repetitive. I personally found that in Jinsho, because there weren't much clear factions beside our enemies, actions seemed quite repetitive, even if the NPCs themselves were different. With the Order, or generally the NPCs in Rinascita, I don't really feel that way yet. Especially because even with these actions, the dialogue they give off is different. Something I found especially funny, and I don't know if this is only after you run or shoot in the cathedral, is these 2 followers. They stop their conversation to turn around and judge you for doing such unholy things inside the cathedral. Something else that speaks for the Order being something more established than, let's say, the Exiles maybe. I think Yinlin is one, I forgot, but she doesn't really look like one, is that they actually have a playable resonator that is part of them and also wears the same clothing as them. Of course, a bit more fanced up with a bigger hat and a very squishy face, Phoebe is our soon-to-be playable acolyte. The Falia family is closely knit with the Order, as we saw in the story, dressed in fancier suits and often looking quite shady in my opinion. You can often find them together with the people of the Order. Fun fact, maybe I'm blind, but the Falia family and their followers, besides some richer common folk, seem to be the only ones visiting the Order of the Deep. They're often the ones getting blessed or looking at architecture of the Order. Seeing as the Order and the Falia family are against the Melli's plan to give terminals to people, I'm pretty sure these are mostly Falia or normal Ragonesi children. Even though I say this, I find it quite hard to tell Falia from Melli. The only telltale sign is that the suits of the men slightly differ. The Falia family wearing colors similar to the windows and murals found in the Order of the Deep, while the Melli only wear simple gold accessories. Besides that, we don't have a playable resonator yet, but someone we know that is a Falia we will get to later. Moving on to the Mentellis, you mainly find them in the Mentelli Quarter and near the Everardo Vault. The Mentelli are a bit more expressionate than the Falia, I feel, whether that's intentional or not. I think so, but whatever. You find them conversing a lot, hanging out, drinking, and watching performances near the vault. Much like Phoebe, this family is much more established, with their playable resonator being Carlotta, actively involving us in the story between her family and the Falia. Lastly, we have the Fool's Troop, mostly secluded to a smaller cave inside the Fool's Elysium in Penitence End. The Fool's Troop are, well, fools. Despite their situation seeming a lot more dire, you find them normally conversing or even singing throughout Rinascita. A darker thing about them though, which we also experience through Brand saving us, is that this faction rescues people that have been exiled by the Order, or pilgrimaged if you wish to call it that. You can find many Ragonesi in the cave of the Fool's Troop, shivering and wondering what happened to them and why they can't go back. Effectively, you could say it's 2 versus 2 with these factions, the Order and the Falia family, as well as the Mentelli and the Fool's Troop. Like the Order and the Mentelli, the Fool's Troop actually has 2 resonators that are playable, Rozia and the soon-to-be playable Brand. Moving on to what I was teasing earlier, while Rinascita is packed with these factions which are pretty much only really discernible by lore that all have their own things to do, we also have key NPCs. In my opinion, the ones in Zinsol were okay. They did their job, but weren't exactly something to write home about, or really interesting. Rinascita pulled up a whole cast of NPCs that, in my opinion, could all be 4-star playable characters if it weren't for some conditions. Starting off with Rosemary, Raguna City's pharmacy store, she's decked out in so many little details. A long lavender dress with an apron, a staff in her hand, the laurel wreaths the acolytes wear, and so much more. While only being a pharmacist, actually talking to her tells us what I was going to reference earlier. Rosemary is part of the Falia family. While all of the other factions at least have one playable or soon-to-be playable character, the Falia family has the local pharmacist that, while this would usually be worrying, poison-wise, is actually okay this time. She seems very nice to us and hopes we won't be prejudiced against her like other people, including her in the Falia family as the Poison of Raguna, just because, again, she's a Falia. Next up, we have Margarita and Bakey, another design I could see work very well, kind of like Lumi and Squeaky. Margarita is our local source for food and recipes, and is also low-key scamming us like a certain other Jinsho man. Margarita is another very kind NPC that you can explicitly talk to. After her, we have Fulmine, a man part of the Pioneer Association, together with his buddy Seamoss. Fulmine's resonation power is that his hair is part film that are also his memories. In my opinion, he just looks so silly and could totally work like Genshin's many smaller companion-using characters, along with using something similar to Charlotte. Talking to him is also very funny, saying how he's been losing hair, or rather film, begging us to find it without explicitly looking at it. He's just so cute. Lastly, I want to feature one that has a cool design, but I can't imagine being playable due to her very nature. Nyarla from Mask's Revelry has a resonation power that makes her invisible. She's our weaponsmith in Rinascita that seamlessly blends into her craft. Nyarla is more mysterious than the rest and tells us about how many have tried to imagine what she looks like. I feel her design with the extravagant long dress and the mask details, and generally her being, well, invisible, would be very cool, but wouldn't really work with fighting and climbing and all that. I guess another thing that's stopping these 4 from being playable is that they'd be double. I guess meeting the same character outside a quest isn't really an issue because they disappear at some point, but shopkeepers might be where Kuro draws the line. Also, honorable mention to this guy here. He's very sus, but also would. Regardless, I really believe Rinascita is a huge improvement from the population of Denso. Everyone has something to do or somewhere to be, reacting to you or not. And if there's ever people missing, it's made up with echoes. Another thing I really enjoy is the day-night cycle this place has. Daytime has different NPCs than nighttime, kind of reminding me of the Legend of Zelda time cycles. What do you think about Rinascita's NPCs? Do you think they're an improvement, or would you have liked something different? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you have a nice day, and bye-bye.
Da da dee da 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 da. Da da dee da 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 da. Da da dee da 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 da.